Well, just last week, Scott Ott filled me with a radiant joy with his story of the rocky financial road over at the New York Times. And in that segment, I said that was all just sauce for the goose after all of the anti-business, anti-prosperity reporting that the paper does. So now, just this very week, we learned from the Times how Apple, the biggest company in the world, sidesteps paying billions of dollars in taxes. So let's bring in Steve Green and Scott Ott, two fellows who, like me, have a lifetime of hiding our own billions of dollars in revenue and hidden it very, very well, as you can plainly see from our haircuts, our suits, our shirts, and our ties. We do wear multi-million-dollar pants and shoes, however. Gents, the first round goes to the tone of all of this, because Apple is being portrayed as being nefarious, selfish, and mean for taking advantage of every single tax break they can muster. Actions like this are demonized by the president, who, as we recently discovered, is also taking advantage of every tax break he can muster. Hey, Steve, does Apple have a moral obligation to pay a penny in tax more than what they can legally avoid?
Nope. And you know what? That is the exact same attitude held by such tax-worthy stalwarts as Warren Buffett and Elizabeth Warren. Hey, there's a coincidence. I wonder if that's a conspiracy. But listen, what the New York Times didn't tell you is this. Apple pays estimated taxes each quarter, like every company does under our tax laws, based on their earnings from the same quarter the year before. But Apple has been doubling its earnings year after year. So when it pays its full taxes, not the estimate, it pays more than 24%. 24% is what they'll pay this year, not the 10 or 11% the New York Times told you about. So the real story here is that this is a hit piece. This is the New York Times using misleading numbers to drum up class warfare hatred, and they're doing it hand in hand with the Obama campaign.
Multiple layers of fact-checking and editorial review, ladies and gentlemen, are what separate serious organs like the New York Times from regular bloggers who sit in their basement and write in their pajamas. Hey, Scotty, the United States has the highest corporate tax rate in the developed world. Now, if money goes to holding offices in Ireland and Luxembourg, whose fault is that? Is that Apple's fault, do you think, or maybe it's the government's fault?
Well, why would anybody pay a penny more than they had to in taxes? I mean, does the corporate board at the New York Times instruct their treasurer and their controller to look for ways to pay additional taxes? Do they, for example, pay their employees' health benefits in cash so that that money can be taxed? Do they take their pension money and all give it to the employees in cash to make sure that the employees would have to receive that as taxable income? Nobody does that. This insanity of branding legal opportunities to pay the very tax that the tax code says you're supposed to pay as some sort of criminal activity is just it's an Occupy Wall Street mentality that's fostered by the White House, by the New York Times, and frankly by a lot of businesses who've gotten sucked into this little game and cower at the throne of President Obama.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe the crocodile will eat me last. Well, I was following this story also on Mac Rumors, and reading the comments there was, to say the least, enlightening. Steve, you could almost see the hipster heads explode as their hatred of evil, greedy corporations collided with their love of iPods, iPhones, and iPads. So how would you respond to their hipster lamentations and gnashing of teeth over Apple execs buying themselves things like large yachts with the money that should have been going to welfare programs for hipsters?
Yeah, that's what they need, welfare programs. They already have one. It's called Starbucks. You know what? First, we had the war on women. Yeah, I think I mentioned this on Scott's segment, but I got to repeat it. It's such a great point. We had the war on women, and then we had Romney and the dog on his car, the bin Laden football spiking. All these instances where the left has overplayed its hand, and here it is. They're doing it again. So, yeah, I hate the hipster D-bags as much as anybody, but you know what? Right now, they're learning that their favorite company in the world, it's actually my favorite company in the world, that it makes money. It makes a lot of money, and if it doesn't make a lot of money, it won't keep making iPads and iPhones and MacBook Airs and all the rest. So, you know what? If you're really a hipster and you have a choice between Elizabeth Warren and your cool stuff, you're going to go with your cool stuff.
Funny how that works, isn't it? Hey, Scott, what would you say to a self-described socialist I read saying that if he only had enough money to get comfortably by, he'd be willing to pay extra in taxes? Does anyone, anywhere, ever get to the place where they say, hey, I'm doing better than I need to. I believe I'll pay more in taxes today.
Well, God bless them if they do, because they're going to need God's blessing with all that foolishness bopping around inside their heads. How could they possibly think such a ridiculous thing? You know, the tax code is confiscatory as it is. It is unbalanced. It is unfair by any stretch of the imagination, and it's way, way too high. So why in the world would anybody want to give the government, which is proven that it doesn't know how to spend money efficiently, that it wastes money and actually costs people more money in the way it spends money? Why would you give them a penny more than you absolutely had to? And by the way, this program and every program here on PJTV that I am part of is written on my iPad and also on my iMac, which is right in front of me. And they make me more productive. And as a result, I'm able to earn more money on which I can pay additional taxes, as I certainly have this year.
They're written on my iPad, and they're written off my taxes. Well, folks, Apple will very soon likely become the world's first trillion-dollar company, and they deserve it. They've not only made hundreds of millions of people's lives more productive, interesting, and fun, they've rewired the way the world works and thinks. You know, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, sitting in their garages in the 70s, will have created $1,000 billion of prosperity that just wasn't there before them. Not only do they deserve any reward they could ask for, so does their company. The money Apple has paid in salaries and the tax revenues those salaries have generated, not to mention the sales taxes, are literally incalculable. And if California doesn't like the fact that money is flowing from Cupertino to places like China, Ireland, or even Reno, Nevada, then America in general, and California in particular, can decide to present not the highest, but the lowest corporate tax rate in the world, and let's see what happens then. But they won't. See, it's golden goose for dinner tonight. Small portions all around, I'm afraid. And tomorrow? Well, tomorrow we've got bupkis, but that's tomorrow. We don't have to worry about tomorrow, do we? For PJTV, I'm Bill Whittle.